Hello, my name is Alex Opoku, and then my partner is Najib Dollar Hussein. And then we are here to talk today about the weather app, as you can see on your screen. So, what is it? This is a weather app built with Python and Tkinter. And then with the core architecture, we use the MVC, which is the Model View Controller Design Pattern. And this separates the application's data, the user interface, and control logic, making the code organized, scalable, and easier to maintain. The key features of this application one is it fetches real data and a 5-day forecast, and then it displays this data with a modern dark-themed graphic user interface, and then it caches icons and flags for performance, and then maintains a search history with timestamps. It also provides visual feedback with a loading spinner and then dynamic backgrounds. All right, so I'm going to run for you to see how this application works. So for instance, if I enter a name of a city and then I click on search, it will load and then fetch this current data online. And as you can see, it has displayed a very nice full view of this application. Okay. Okay, so now that you've seen how this application works, let's talk about the architecture, which is the blueprint of this application. And then the first one that we talk about is the model, which is the data manager, and then my colleague here will take it from there.
Okay, for the model.py, which is the data manager, its main responsibility is to communicate with the external Open Weather Map API. And some of its key actions are to make HTTP requests to fetch current weather and forecast data. And it passes the complex code from the API into a simple, clean dictionary that the rest of the app can easily use. And it also handles errors like network issues or invalid cities and passes them back to the controller.
Now, let's talk about the view.py or the view, which is the user interface or what the user sees. So the view.py responsibility is everything the user sees or interacts with. So for instance, the key components are the search bar, which you can see here, and then the history, the search history that you can see here. This is everything that is in view. That is what the user can see. And then you can also see the current weather data, which is the 27 degrees here with a few clouds and then cold. And then you can also see the 5-day forecast here. And then as I search for Accra, I guess you saw the loading spinner. So these are things that you can find. These are things that you can find in the view or what we call the user interface. So the view, it does not handle fetching of data or any application logic. It only displays information and sends user actions like a button click to the controller.
Okay, now let's move on to controller.py, which is the brain or the coordinator of the application. Its main responsibility is to glue the model and view together. It contains the application's logic, and some of its key actions are to listen for user input from the view, that is when the search button has been clicked, and it asks the model to fetch new data. When the model fetches the data, it takes the data from the model and tells the view how to display it.
So as we've explained the MVC, which is the model, the view, and then the controller and their functionalities, we'll give you a brief on how this data are fetched. First of all, when a user types in, for instance, Accra, and then click on the search button or press the enter key, the view tells the controller that a user wants a weather data. Now the controller takes this data and then shows us a loading spinner. And this is the loading spinner. Good. And then when the loading spinner is showed, the background, that's when the background work starts. The background work starts just to avoid freezing so that the machine will not freeze. It wouldn't run the data, let's say in normal view so that you can't click on anything. It will run in the background so that as it is running, you can do one or two. Now, when the model searches the data that we are looking for from the API and then get it, it cleans this data, which is very complex, into a very simple data, and then afterwards it hides the loading spinner that you saw, and then sends this clean data to the view. And then what the view will do, it will update it with the icons, and then the temperature, and then the forecast, and then save it in the history. So as we've explained, this is the model, and then everything in it, and then the view here, and then we've already talked about its responsibility or what it does, and then we have the controller, which we also know its responsibilities, and then this is the main.py where everything starts from.
So basically, this is how a weather app using the MVC architecture works. My name is Najib Dollar Hussein and my partner's name is Alex Opoku.